That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
I am so excited, guys. Okay, so y'all know I've been trying to get these Flock Dynasty startup drafts going pretty much all offseason now. But because I am running so many leagues, my number one priority was to make sure that we filled every single one of our current leagues. That way, none of them were going to shut down, and we really didn't have to worry about their longevity. So we are so close to filling all 10 Flock leagues that I think we only have 3 or 4 teams left over. And as soon as those are taken, which is probably today, probably tomorrow, hopefully one of those 2 days, we will get those Dynasty startup drafts going over on Patreon. Now, we already have an extremely long list of people waiting to get in those startups. So how we are going to do it is I'm just going to go to that list and I'm going to start sending out DMs. Say, hey, this is how you get your league dues in. Get them to me ASAP. First 11 people that get them to me, they're going to be in the startup draft this week. And we are going to have a ton of startup drafts, guys. We're probably going to be doing one every single week for, I don't want to say the entire offseason, but pretty dang close to it with how much demand that we have on Patreon for those startup drafts. So please, if you're wanting to take over a current Flock league that is an orphan, DM me ASAP. And to incentivize people to do this, I'm going to do a couple things. The $30 deposit that some teams already have attached to them, the majority do not. I'm going to cover it for all of them. It doesn't matter if the last owner left a deposit. I'm paying that $30 out of pocket just to get people to take these teams. And on top of that, if you are wanting to take over one of these teams and you know that you have to go through Patreon, I'm going to open up original Flock Patreon tiers for whoever wants to come in and get these last teams. That way we can go and start these startups. But sorry for that delay. Sorry for that announcement. I really hope we get that all taken care of very soon. And what we're going to be talking about today is some recent Flock Dynasty trades that I made over the past 2 weeks. After NFL free agency, I've come through and I've made 2 trades that I want to talk about. And they are in 2 separate Flock leagues. And they both involve the same player, Curtis Samuel. Okay, so I understand, guys, y'all are probably looking at me going, Mason, you were telling us to trade for Curtis Samuel at the beginning of this offseason. Like, are you just a scammer? Like, what are you doing? Why are you now telling us to be selling Curtis Samuel? And it's just like the A.J. Dillon scenario, where y'all know halfway through last season, I was like, hey, if you can buy A.J. Dillon for a third right now, he has yet to see the NFL field. Go do so right now because you're going to have an opportunity to sell for a lot more later on. And then once A.J. Dillon's value rose to that first-round pick, I was screaming, sell, sell, sell. It's kind of the similar situation here, where we identified that Curtis Samuel was in that 2017 NFL draft class. We identified that he was extremely young, and because of his versatility, he was going to be a premium free agent target for a ton of NFL teams because we know that there's a difference between real-life NFL wide receiver value and fantasy value. We know fantasy value mainly comes from targets. A perfect example of this that I always love to go to is way back in Miami when the Miami Dolphins had both Jarvis Landry and Kenny Stills. And you had Jarvis Landry with back-to-back over 100 reception seasons. And then you had Kenny Stills not necessarily coming through with being anything more than a wide receiver 3 in fantasy. And when you saw the Miami Dolphins decide to go out there and invest into one of these players, they chose Kenny Stills and his field stretching ability over Jarvis Landry and his extremely low average depth of target. So you see this time and time again. You see this with the NFL draft last offseason where teams prioritize speed because even if it doesn't translate directly over to fantasy points scored, that does not mean it doesn't have an impact on the offense. I mean, Deshaun Jackson is another perfect example of this, where you could make the argument where during his prime, Deshaun Jackson was a top 5 impactful wide receiver at the NFL level, where he never came close to that in fantasy, even with that magical year with Nick Foles and Chip Kelly. So with Curtis Samuel, we always knew that he was going to get a fantastic contract. He has that speed to stretch the field. He can increase the overall offensive efficiency for whatever team he's going to. And he doesn't have to demand a significant amount of targets That's why I think the Curtis Samuel acquisition by Washington is fantastic for their franchise. It's fantastic for the offense. It's even fantastic for Terry McLaurin, because I think Curtis Samuel is going to be drawing so much defensive attention just with how he can be operated in that offense, that Terry McLaurin is finally going to have a little bit of softer looks, and Terry McLaurin's still going to be the alpha in terms of his target share being over 25%. So here, I hope I did a decent job explaining this thesis with Curtis Samuel, that yes, he is one of the most valuable wide receivers from this free agent class in terms of what he's providing his real-life NFL offense. But we can also sit here and understand, while Curtis Samuel has that real-life NFL value, we have yet to see Curtis Samuel be able to command a significant target share, even if he is getting some carries out of the backfield. We know that's not something you can really rely on at the wide receiver position outside of just, say, Robert Woods in LA, where you've seen it year after year after year. So Curtis Samuel, yes, we were buying him a couple months ago, but it was at a much lower price than what he is at now. And I was surprised to see what the Curtis Samuel price is, because it's not like he signed in Washington and I went out there and I said, hey guys, Curtis Samuel's on the block, send me offers. That didn't happen at all. I mean, I was in Florida with my family. I was taking a break, and I was getting DMs on Patreon saying, hey Mason, sent you an offer for Curtis Samuel, sent you an offer for Curtis Samuel, because I had him in so many Flock Patreon Dynasty leagues. And then I was checking out the offers. I was like, oh really? This is what he's worth now? This is how excited people are? And I didn't accept any initial offers. I went through, made some counters. We ended up working out 2 deals across 2 leagues, where I sold Curtis Samuel to 2 separate people, so don't think that this is the same person. But let's break down the first trade and why I really like what we were able to get here. And this was Curtis Samuel for both Bryan Edwards and Denzel Mims. Now, I understand Bryan Edwards and Denzel Mims, both extremely disappointing in their rookie seasons. These are also players that I did not draft a single time in the 2020 NFL rookie drafts. But what we can acknowledge is, we can acknowledge the fact that both of these players are going to see a much better opportunity in 2021 than they saw in 2020. You look at Bryan Edwards and what happened in his rookie season for Las Vegas, and he was getting all the training camp buzz. I mean, everybody was talking about Bryan Edwards, and then he ends up injuring his ankle. Then he never really comes out of that, never really gets the full-time opportunity. Nelson Aguilar is an every down player for this team. They also have Tyrell Williams that really wasn't making an impact, but both of those wide receivers are now gone, and they do not bring in a Juju Smith-Schuster. They do not bring in a Kenny Golladay, a lot of people thought they were going to. So now you're looking at Los Angeles and you're going, okay, they have Darren Waller. Obviously, that's going to be their #1 target leader on this team. And we can sit here and we can go, not good for Bryan Edwards. You don't want the wide receiver playing on a subpar NFL offense when their tight end is going to be getting the majority of the targets. But the wide receiver playing alongside Bryan Edwards in Henry Ruggs, who should be an every down player for this team this upcoming year, is just like Curtis Samuel, just like what we were talking about previously. In that he brings so much value to this Raiders offense, even if he was very disappointing in his rookie year. He was only 21 years old. You can naturally assume that he's going to progress going into his sophomore season. That Henry Ruggs is going to raise the overall efficiency by making sure safeties are staying back, and Henry Ruggs is not going to see a very large target share, just because we understand how those burner wide receivers win is not with volume. They win off of efficiency, and it's so hard outside of a Patrick Mahomes level talent for a quarterback to consistently be able to target those wide receivers downfield, just because the majority of the time they're not open. The majority of the time the look isn't there, and what you're doing is you're looking at the wide receiver underneath that so much space was created for when you have a Henry Ruggs stretching the field. So because of this, I think Bryan Edwards was a massive winner in free agency, and even though we were avoiding him in last year's rookie drafts because I thought he was overvalued, at this point we were going, okay, Bryan Edwards, Curtis Samuel, yes, we would rather have Curtis Samuel over these two, but the gap isn't that big. This is also a best ball league, and that's going to play so much into it, because we know in a best ball league, if you look at both Bryan Edwards and Denzel Mims and you take their peak weeks, those peak weeks are going to combine, and I can almost guarantee outproduce what Curtis Samuel is giving you, and the fact that they are both sophomore players, so they are going to be taxi eligible, so it gives you more roster flexibility overall. And then we go over to Denzel Mims, And I know here with Denzel Mims, a lot of people were disappointed to see Corey Davis sign there. And I don't want to say we were disappointed because you look at how much cap space this team had. You look at the fact that they're most likely taking Zach Wilson with that number 2 overall pick. And you go, of course they were going to invest into wide receiver. I mean, Jamison Crowder is someone that I would be surprised if that contract remains on the books in 2021. So they overpaid Corey Davis. I'll give you that. Corey Davis also isn't like a Curtis Samuel. He's not like a Henry Ruggs. You don't want a Corey Davis in your offense because he's not going to be stretching the field. He's the player that profiles to be seeing that large target share, while maybe Denzel Mims operates a little bit more as that field stretcher. But here, this is just a bet going, you know what? Denzel Mims was playing on the second worst team in the NFL last season. He was only a rookie to go along with this. He was catching passes from Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco. Adam Gase was his head coach. I mean, I didn't love Denzel Mims coming out of Baylor, but you can look at the profile, you can look at the athleticism, and go, okay, there's some upside here. And if he is going to be getting a coaching upgrade, a significant quarterback upgrade to go along with that, I think Denzel Mims and Bryan Edwards, the combination of these two players in a best ball format, is going to be way more appealing than just Curtis Samuel on his own right. Even though Curtis Samuel's still very young. Curtis Samuel has been good in Carolina, and the situation is going to be nice in Washington with Ryan Fitzpatrick and a coaching staff that has known how to use him before. But I know a lot of people probably going to the comment section right now and telling me, Mason, I like that trade. Good job getting Bryan Edwards. Good job getting Denzel Mims. And this is where y'all are going to go down to the comment section with this next trade and go, Mason, you effed up. Mason, you don't know what you're doing. Who can listen to this guy? Clearly, he's a straight-up fraud. He's just a complete donkey. But here, we traded Curtis Samuel in a separate flock league for the rookie pick 202 and Keyshawn Vaughn. Now, let me give you some context with this. This is a super flex league as well. This is not only the rookie pick 202, but how these flock leagues operate is you don't have a waiver wire. What's actually really fun is we have a spaced out rookie draft through the course of the offseason to keep everybody engaged. And that's where you have both your rookies and your vets. There's a total of 8 rounds. And because you don't have your waiver wire, there are some players that slip through the cracks that are going to be in those rookie drafts, like a James Robinson. James Robinson is going to be in the rookie draft here. And you assume that Robinson's going to be off way before the 202. So this pick indeed is actually about the rookie pick 201. And then you go through, you look at just the rookie class overall, and you go, okay, so we understand that there are going to be 4 quarterbacks off the board before we get anywhere close to the second round in Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. Then we also understand there are guaranteed 3 running backs to go off the draft board in Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, and Javonte Williams. Then you go over, Kyle Pitts is guaranteed to go off the board as well. So that's 8 players before you even get to the wide receiver position. Then, like I said, James Robinson is also included in the scenario. So James Robinson's going to go in that top 9 as well. So you go, okay, there are 9 players without a single wide receiver going off the board. Now, let's try to look at how many wide receivers in this rookie class would we possibly rather have over Curtis Samuel. And I think we can all safely assume that Jamar Chase, yes, is going to be a wide receiver you would rather have over Curtis Samuel. I would way prefer Devontae Smith over Curtis Samuel as well. Obviously, landing spots are going to play into this, but I think Devontae Smith has a shot to make it to that early second round with so many people just chirping nonstop about his weight, so many people coming out here chirping about the fact that he stayed all 4 years at Alabama. But regardless, Devontae Smith, say even if he is off the board, then you're at the 11th rookie, so you have 11, 12, and then where we are. So 3 more guys. And then with those 3 guys, there is still Rondale Moore, there is still Elijah Moore, and Rashad Bateman. And you can make the argument for any one of those 3 wide receivers to be over Curtis Samuel, depending on landing spot. Then throw in the fact that usually you see something crazy happen in rookie drafts. Usually you don't see every single player go off how you would expect. Usually someone kind of reaches for a player. So that's what I'm thinking here. I'm thinking, okay, yes, we're most likely not going to be able to get Devontae Smith at the 202. Most likely, we're probably going to have to end up getting a Rondale Moore. But even in that case, who is to say that Rondale Moore is worth any less than Curtis Samuel in Dynasty Fantasy Football? And then throw in the fact that in a best ball Dynasty league where rosters are 35 men, here, Keyshawn Vaughn not necessarily the worst asset. Another player, another 2020 rookie that I did not draft a single time last offseason. I hated Keyshawn Vaughn. And we were on here nonstop talking about, hey, how are y'all drafting a 23-year-old running back coming out of Vanderbilt over players like T. Higgins? It was absolutely ridiculous. But nonetheless, now if you're just going to get him as a completely free throw-in, you look at the running back contract situation in Tampa, where Ronald Jones was a part of that 2018 NFL draft class, so he only has 1 year left on that deal. Leonard Fournette, you look at his deal, only 1 year as well. So you go, okay, Keyshawn Vaughn was drafted in the 3rd round last offseason. We could end up seeing Tampa lose both Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette for 2022. Then, quite possibly, maybe Keyshawn Vaughn is never that high-end running back 2 that people thought he was going to be last offseason. But in a best ball format, say Keyshawn Vaughn can just become the pass-catching running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's going to be a player that makes an impact. And when you can roster rookie and sophomore year players on your taxi squad, so they aren't really accruing that roster spot, you don't have to invest it into them, I think Keyshawn Vaughn is a perfect just free ad. So that's why I like the trade of Curtis Samuel for the rookie pick 202 when James Robinson's going to be in the draft, so it's pretty much the 201. And Keyshawn Vaughn, where you can just stash him on the taxi squad, and even if he never makes it into the starting lineup, still, you could make the argument that Rondell Moore would be a better dynasty asset than Curtis Samuel, and we know some people would be arguing that with Rashad Bateman, and so on. So I really hope that me going through these videos and just breaking down some of my recent trades gives you a better overall insight on how I kind of view roster construction and dynasty and how I kind of view these player values. So go down to the comment section. Let me know if y'all enjoy these videos. Let me know if you want me to continue making them, or if it's, hey Mason, we don't care about your dynasty team. We just want to hear other videos. That's fine as well. Let me know in the comment section so I don't have to waste anybody's time. But yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video, and have a great day, guys.